My name is Donald Dupuis. I'm a member of the Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes. I was born and raised in Polson, attended Polson High School, and then I graduated from the University of Montana. I was then hired by the Upjohn Company out of Kalamazoo, Michigan, which is a major pharmaceutical manufacturer. After 14 years with the company, and it was a very good job, I really enjoyed it. I always wanted to come back home to my own reservation and do something with and for my tribe. So that's why I came back here. Started my businesses, the smoke signals. At one time I had 3 stores. And I noticed an ad in the paper looking for a new chief judge of the tribe. Salary up to $9,000. Well, that interested me because I always wanted to be a judge, you know. And I always use this little old axiom, I'm a PE major, so I can do anything, you know. So I applied for the job, and after 3 times before the tribal council interviews, they hired me as their chief judge. At that time, there was just 1 clerk. The jail was very poor. And we would see just traffic offenses, but more and more people started to come in and see us. And we grew to one of the most visible and well-recognized tribal courts in the United States. I'm very proud of that system. I stepped down after 19 years. I was the judge for that length of time, and I had to grow. You know, there's so much law. You walk in any lawyer's office, it's full of law books. You walk in any judge's office, it's full of law books. So I had to do a lot of learning, even though I had a lot of background and a lot of doing different things, dealing with people's rights, dealing with that person before you who has a charge on them, and try to make them feel like they're an important person. They're not a criminal, and you know, treat them with respect. For example, I notice on TV a lot of times a charged individual come before the judge in what I call jailhouse clothing orange, and they're in shackles and handcuffs, and I never allowed our people to appear that before the tribal court when I was the chief judge. I felt that clean clothes, and because they're not convicted yet, that would be enough for them to appear. It didn't sometimes sit well with the police department, but on the other hand, I felt you weren't convicted, so the street clothes is fine. That's what we did. The background experience that a tribal councilman should have is a varied background like I have. The business world, the being a judge, in my role on the tribal council, 1 of 10, I try to deal more with the court systems, law and order, and the business aspects. Our other tribal council people, we have loggers on there, we have a couple cattlemen on there, we have a social worker, we have other managers who have been there, and I think all our varied experience really helps us. And some of the times, you know, when we're talking about water or falling timber, I don't always really understand everything I could about. When they want to talk about business and law, then I know what I'm talking about. You know, because I'm on the tribal council now, and we have duties other than our Tuesday and Thursday all-day meetings, we may get assigned to do a credit review, and I'm on that committee. Council Energy Resource Tribes, I'm part of that committee. We get other duties, but I do have a car phone. And I've met some of my friends, and they say, I always wave at you, but you're always on the car phone. And as I'm leaving town, I'm thinking, oh, I forgot to do something. So I'll use my car phone. And, you know, my very close business associates and people, they have my car phone number. And the staff who works for me can usually always get a hold of me. Even the tribe can call me on my car phone. I was in Spokane one day, and my car phone rang. It was the secretary for the tribe. Said, Don, I need to talk to you. And I said, let me pull off the highway here so I can concentrate on this, because if I'm driving down the highway and listening to a very intense conversation, I don't want to rear end somebody or someone hit me head on. But I try to keep available to people. At the smoke signal, I have 3 employees. 2 are full-time, 1 is part-time. Here I have my oldest daughter is here, and then she's trained her daughter to work in here, and then we have one other person that's also part-time. The help, when we hire them, we always train them to do a specific job. In the smoke signal and in here, I always ask and demand that we have clean fingernails and clean hands. The reason for that is because when you hand back money, or the smoke signal is a drive-in, you have to hand the money out, and I want to make sure that they have a good impression. I ask them to be clean. I'm not real particular. They have to have the world's greatest designer clothing on and all that, but I want them to be neat and clean, and they have to smile. I also insist that my employees speak to everybody that comes in the store. Walmart, and I read his book, Mr. Walton, he demanded his employees, when they were within 6 feet of a customer, they had to speak to him. And there's nothing that irritates me more to walk into the store and be not recognized and say, "We'll be with you in a minute, sir. Sir, I'm kind of busy," and all this. When I'm taking care of a customer at the cash register in my stores, and someone comes in, I say, "Well, hello there. I'll be with you in just a second." To recognize that their presence is important to me. And I try not to speak to everybody. Everybody, I have to speak to them and learn something about them and ask them what type of cigarettes they are using, they want, and what our prices are, what our specials are. But I teach the help to do the same thing. To ask, well, I have a special here. You wanted 2 Marlboros. We have a special day. You buy 2, you get 2 free. The company packages those, and most time they will use those also. I've always felt that I'm open to helping my people who work for me, whether it's in the court or in my stores. If they're having any type of personal problems that I could help them with, I always felt that when I was a judge, number of times the clerks would come into my office, close the door, and say, "I need to talk to you." And I used to wonder, uh-oh, what have I done now? And they would their personal problem to me, and we'd discuss it, and I've always tried to help them, even if it meant loaning them money or give me advice how to do this or do that. For example, the young lady that manages my smoke shop, she had a chance to buy a home from a private individual. She needed $1,000 down. So I loaned it to her, and she was so happy. She got her home. The lady accepted the $1,000. She had to pay for it for 3 years, and then all that money paid in went to her down payment. So now Larice is paying for her own home, and that makes me feel so good that I was able to loan her the $1,000. And when she got her tax back, she paid me right back. And that's the kind of loyalty that I felt I built with my help. Now, Larice is a single mother. The father, his medical care takes care of the children, and she's my only non-tribal employee. So when she has to go to the doctor, which is rare, I pay for her office call. If she, any of her physical, she had to have dental work, an emergency dental appointment one day, it was like $200 and some. We paid for that because I feel that by spending that money on an employee who's so important to me, then I buy the loyalty. And when I'm gone, she manages a store just as if I was there. She makes very good decisions, and I've brought her training along, and letting her know why things are done this way, why we stock our shelves this way, why I want the labels square, why I want everything neat and clean, and that she has just done an excellent job. All three of my employees have. I also, in my spare time, entered into another business that is growing. It's a medical supply company. I call it Travois Medical. I don't know if you've seen the movie Dances with Wolves, and the Travois are going across a plain, hauling the wounded and the elders. And I always felt that that was an appropriate name for a tribal business. We've been selling infection control supplies, sterilants, disinfectants, soaps, rubber gloves, gauze pads, and whatever a hospital or dental clinic may need. That is growing now to a level of where I need to make a decision in the future. Do I want to keep on expanding and maybe have to hire a salesperson to travel or train someone, or just do it myself? I've always like the selling game and teaching people how to sell, which is important, and why to do the situation. Expand their knowledge about the medical world so they can speak about the use of rubber gloves with a talcum powder or versus a cornstarch powder, and the cornstarch is less allergenic than the talcum powder. So we use things like this, how the gloves fit, the various sizes, and so I teach them those situations. The soaps and the sterilants, how they kill bacteria, to what range they kill bacteria, and what my product will do versus what they're using, and a comparison such as General Motors and Ford, which is the better pickup today, you know. And sometimes they're that close, and you have to have the ability to listen, and I think that's important in a lot of situations, ability to listen and really zero in on what the complaint is about your product and then turn it around. I've always been taught, especially by the Upjohn company, whenever there's a complaint, an objection to your company, treat it like a balloon of hot air. The objection's that big balloon of hot air, and the more that person talks, the less the balloon stays up. And if it gets down where there's nothing else to talk about, the balloon is all out of air, then you can turn the situation around and tell them why. Like, for example, well, your product won't kill AIDS virus. Well, why is that important to you? Well, because AIDS is growing to this level, and we need a product that will kill AIDS. The clincher becomes then, well, if my product, I can show that it does kill AIDS, my reputable laboratories would be interested in buying it. Well, that's a yes question. And they'll say, well, yes, you can show it to me, so I have the literature to back up and show that it will kill AIDS and other bacteria in moments, I should say. And is this what you'd like? Is this enough to convince you to buy my product? Well, see, I've turned it around. I haven't been offensive to anybody. I haven't called them a dummy or liar. And I just showed them the information. And I think selling, whether it's in my smoke shop, in the video store, what movies would you like? You may like this and you may like that one. Or this product meets all your needs and I have a better price. Could I have your order? The idea of getting traveling medical started as I thought on most reservations there are dental clinics, Indian Health hospitals, and we had better products that we felt, and I feel strongly about this, that I could deliver a better set of infection control products to Indian Health Service and hospitals what they're currently using, because we were on top of the technology. We had really good experts helping us along these lines, helping us develop and manufacturers to make these things. I think in infection control, especially, that it changes so rapidly, you've got to keep on top of this. And I think that with the background knowledge that I've obtained with Upjohn and the ability to read and understand and convey what your product will do, and they must be truthful, that results in a sale. Yes, the development of these products from the field aspect, the clients will say, well, I wish we had a soap that didn't have an odor to it. Well, maybe the one I'm selling has an odor, maybe it does not. Or maybe it's alcohol based, and you run that out in your skin, you get a little stinging. And they say, well, why couldn't we get a product that wouldn't sting? Or why couldn't we get a product that wouldn't be irritating? Or back to the rubber gloves. Many times you'll find in a hospital that the staff has rashes to a rubber glove. Well, in checking out that further, it may be a talcum powder, which is really from a diatomaceous earth, which is really little microorganisms and small organisms that have died, ground all up, and becomes a very fine powder. That's where talcum powder comes from. Where my product is a cornstarch, and the cornstarch has less potential for allergies to the skin than the talcum powder. So you need to know those to talk about them. You also need to know about your gloves with the tensile strength. You see on TV where a surgeon will run his hands into a glove like this, and you don't want them to tear. We have come across Indian Health Service hospitals that were really mad that the surgeon may put on 2 or 3 pair of gloves and it'd all break. Well, you certainly don't want him operating a member of your family and his glove will break during surgery. My gloves that I have that we sell are a little bit stronger. They're also thin, and when they run their hand in, that they do not break or break as readily as, and I can pull them up to my elbow and they will still not break. They like that aspect, although mine will be a little more expensive than the gloves that are cheaper that will break easier. Well, I pointed out to one hospital, if you have to put on 4 pair of rubber gloves to find a pair that won't break and use one of mine, the mine is going to be a lot cheaper. So it's constant because you have another salesman coming in and say, oh, his is better. They have to listen. But I think that if you know your product, know why it's made the way it is, and what you can do to turn that around, then you can make a sale in any business. I think in listening to your clientele, if they're having a problem with your glove or a competitor's glove, as an example, or one of their infection control solutions, you need to listen real carefully. And then what I do is I turn that question around by saying, well, you mean now, in a rubber glove, for example, your staff is getting a rash from the rubber gloves that you're currently using. And make sure I understand the question correctly. And then I'll discuss the properties of the rubber gloves that we have, and with a cornstarch powder instead of the others, and I'll leave them a box to try. And it's not an expensive item, and it may result in a larger sale. And I think that, or if they say, well, one dental clinic using a product that had an odor to it, and I discussed the odor with them and showed them my product that didn't have the odor or wasn't as strong, so they eventually kept that product. And once you start helping your clients do this, then it opens the door for more and more questions, more and more products. They put more faith in you. But I think, and I know, I don't think, I guess, I know that you have to know what you're talking about. You have to be believable, and you have to have that background knowledge to sell. Another example, into the smoke signal. All the problems come in with the filters. And they're talking about the additives that are in the filter, or the additives that are in the tobacco. There are products now that are 100% tobacco. There's nothing added to it. Those are starting to pick up, I notice. When I first opened the business, there weren't the lights. There just weren't lights. Camels and Philip Morris and those type of products were there, Lucky Strike. Very few filters were there. They were coming in. Now the ultralights are taking over the market a lot, but there's additives in there. So that's the thing that we need to know about and be concerned about. Well, the biggest customers that I like to have are the hospitals, the dental clinics, anybody who would use infection control products and rubber gloves. Like, for example, I didn't realize food service. I was at a restaurant talking to some people, and I noticed the people preparing the food in the back room all had rubber gloves on. So I sold that clinic rubber gloves. I was at a tribal casino not too long ago, and I noticed that their help had rubber gloves on. So I sold them 10 boxes of rubber gloves. Not a very large order, but I might be able to get more of that business. They also use infection control products in their cleaning of the floors, the bathrooms, the countertops. One of the dirtiest things you ever handle is money. And one of my products, I have, you can squirt the solution on the counter. You wait 30 seconds before you wipe it all up, and your counter has killed all the bacteria there. I always use the telephone as an example. I don't have my telephone here handy, but I always use my telephone because, really, if you think about it, you'll cough, it's in your hand, you pick up the phone, you use it, or I'm giving change back, and I've got bacteria on my hands, or you have coughed and have done this, and you got bacteria on your hands. And so a lot of times, you need this type of knowledge to be able to kill the bacteria that's there. I wipe off my counters, my keys. People use our telephone a lot of times. Well, then later on I'll wipe it all down to kill any bacteria that's there. If you stop and think about it, we're always passing germs. We shake hands, and we're always doing that. And I think these are things that in my business you look like you're a little more cognizant of what's happening. I think that especially in travel medical, there is a market among Indian tribes because Most all tribes have a dental clinic. We have 2 or 3 on this reservation. We have what, 2 hospitals here, and other reservations also have hospitals, clinics, and I think it's just a matter of getting out there and finding out what people are using. Like for example, and I went into the kitchen to talk to this friend of mine. I noticed all his help preparing food was wearing rubber gloves, and they told me they'll cut up beef, so they'll take off the rubber gloves, throw it away, and they'll put on a new set and do seafood. Well, you certainly don't want that seafood odor on your beef, so they'll take that off and do chicken or vegetables. I hadn't even thought about that. Just because I was back there and watching and listening what happened, I think I might have created another market for myself. I think that in Travois, that if we had the time to be in a lot of the areas, that we could expand our marketplace considerably instead of waiting for the hospital, oh, I need 10 cases of gloves, and when will they order the 10 cases again? The beauty salons, they need to upgrade their infection control for their scissors and their combs, and if you notice, they'll often drop a comb on the floor. I've noticed the one I use, she'll throw it in the sink, but I've wondered how she cleans it up. You know, and when that cut my lip, I often will ask her how she cleaned it up, and they told me. Your dental instruments, you know, they need to scrub the instrument, put it in the solutions that we sell, wrap it up, and put it in an autoclave that kills the bacteria. They need to know this in order to do that. And it's hard to keep going on finding new customers for your product because you're going to lose some, whether they're unhappy with your product or you. You need to be out there working, making what we'd call making the calls. Whether I start off the day here in Polson, Montana, if I would go up to the hospital and talk to the hospital administrator or the person that does the buying, you need to know their name and what they buy and when they buy. If you take a government facility, that you need to know that October 1 they'll have new money to buy, but also you got to realize that maybe by July 1 they'll have money they want to expend this year, and you need to be there and ready to go to sell. So you need to be out there making the calls, which goes back to the situation if I were to stay on the tribal council or work on Travois, where I would be the most happy. One of my pet projects is working with the tribes in Montana. We're developing a uniform commercial code, commonly known as a UCC Code. Whenever the tribe loans money, or a bank, or lending institution of any sort, they have what we call a uniform commercial code filing. That lien is filed against the property. You know, and if they're not filed, as many tribes are, you don't have a record of that transaction. Consequently, many banks, especially in the eastern part of Montana, and that's east of the Continental Divide, the tribes, the smaller tribes there, did not have a functioning UCC code, so they hated to loan money to tribal members for farm equipment, farm machinery, planting crops. A farmer to that level of land and that extensive land holdings they could have 30, 40,000 just in planting costs. The banks were hesitant to loan money to that individual because they had no way to collect. The land is in trust held by the United States, the name of that person. Maybe his farm machinery isn't worth all that amount of money. The home is usually on trust property. Sometimes if you know your bankers real well, they'll loan you that type of money and take a chance. And that's what we're working on, to better facilitate the Montana bankers able to loan money on Indian reservations where the court system is viable enough, up to speed enough to help collect in the event of a default. The last meeting recently we had in Missoula in mid-April, we have our second draft. It's being done by the Indian Law Clinic at the University of Montana School of Law, developing the code that would be acceptable to most Indian tribes. I think the process is the tribes would then have to review that process and fit within their code the things that individual tribes may want. It's coming together, and I think it's viable. I know over the years, I can remember my parents bought a home from a private individual here in Polson when I was just a little kid. and it was $25 a month was my folks' payment. The banks didn't loan Indians money at that time. So we had to find other ways of financing. It wasn't until recently that they realized that our tribal members now have very good jobs, excellent. We have many times our own lawyers who are members of our tribe. We have a physician who's a member of our tribe. We have a dentist who's a member of our tribe, and many of our tribal members have been able to attain very good jobs. So the banks are loaning money to that individual with a reasonably good chance of collecting in the event of a default. Well, the tribal court, when it's functioning properly, is a very important tool in any community. I've always felt the tribal court is probably the most visible part of the tribe. Sure, I know in our own situation here we have Salish and Kootenai College, which I'm very proud of. I'm proud to be a member of the Tribal Council. Our Mission Valley Power, our power facility is well thought of, well run. But all that, you may have to file actions in tribal court from these entities. Our credit department is worth $27 million. In event of a default, they have to file in tribal court. So our judges need to be well trained to make decisions on contracts and contract problems that do occur. And the UCC filings and UCC Commercial Code, which I feel that most tribes will have, they'll have a body of law to go to help make a decision on these matters. The United States Supreme Court has often said recently that you have to have the exhaustion remedy, it's called. That means that anybody filing against the tribe or tribal member has got to go through the tribal court. Have then the next step is do the appellate court system, which all tribes have, and only then could they then maybe file in the federal court system of the United States to see and to view if the tribe had jurisdiction in this original matter. Most of the time I've ever known the tribes had jurisdiction on this matter and have gone on, the case has been rectified. However, I guess I always personally felt if I had a federal judge looking over my shoulder in a court, he upheld me, that would be feather in my hat or our hat as a tribal court judge and be well recognized that we did the proper job. Sometimes I know it might be perceived by the outside entity that I'm going into an Indian court, there's an Indian judge, Indian clerks there, Indian police officers. I don't have a chance. Not necessarily so. In 1978, our tribal court awarded a non-member widow. Her husband was in a vehicular problem and he died, and the tribal court of this tribe awarded the widow and two children $240,000. That time, that was 1978, that turned a lot of heads that maybe said, hey, I think a non-member coming to that court system has a chance. Well, we have to look at the law and weigh, and if you have a contract before you, as an example, and they gambles or someone has entered in a contract with a tribal member purchasing a washer and dryer or a television, and everything has been through defaulting, and the default clause in your contract, the judge looks at the law, the contract, and one thing I've always liked our ability to do as tribal court judges, we have the ability to maybe take that contract and the parties put them together and maybe get them to make another agreement without having to do that. However, if the party who entered into the contract, usually the plaintiff, wants his property back, and after your hearing you find that the contract has been breached, they must return the property and or the car. We had situations early on where an automobile dealership would come on the reservation on trust property and repossess the car. We'd call them up and say, bring the car back, where you found it. File in the tribal court, and we will go ahead and hold the hearing and work out any situation we have, and if we can't, we'll allow you to repossess the car. So now car dealers do not come on the reservation on trust property to repossess cars. However, if you have driven that car on a public street and you're parked at the public school or wherever on public property and they want to repossess, they can. But those are situations that do not happen much anymore. And I think our court system is well recognized in its ability to be fair and treat everybody equal. The Montana Bankers Association is really involved in helping to promote the UCC Code and the code revisions for Indian tribes. The reason the Montana Bankers are behind this move, so they want to be able to loan more money to tribal members who heretofore have been denied credit. They had no collateral, number one. Number two, the ability to collect through the tribal court system was kind of in question. I had a man in the Yakima Nation that owed me some money, and I filed suit there, and the chief judge wouldn't accept it because he says, oh, our tribal council doesn't like to take suits against their own members. So I have no way to collect. I have no way to collect. Here, that when our banks on the reservation, and I think all of them do this, enter into promissory notes with a tribal member, for small amounts, $200, $300, $400, $500, $1,000. They always know that they'll get their money. One of the reasons they know that, we have a dividend of $1,200 a year. And if it's not already tied up, the banks had been able to collect and use that. Well, they could, or they'll call up and say, that I know you're getting your dividend today. Could you come in and place something on your note? And that works that way. I believe that our credit department and by the tribal members' ability to have that credit, have another way to do things that they may have to do. I'm getting to the point with Travoy Medical about wanting to expand and train someone. I'm up for election this fall in the tribal council. And in September, I need to declare if I want to run for another term, which I've come to enjoy. The first 3 or 4 months on the tribal council was so stressful to a lot of us new people that we were having little medical problems. I'm a diabetic. My leg from my knee down was full of itchy lesions. I was scratching all the time, I guess, at night, and my doctor felt it was stress. Once I realized that I can't change the world on every vote, that I could better handle that. With Travoy, where it takes more and more time now to go out and make a call, to drive somewhere or be on the phone or fax, and maybe have to go call on that customer. And I don't really have the time being on tribal council that the older council used to have. The people who have been on there said the things that we handle grows every year, grows and grows. And so we don't have quite the time that we used to have. When I was first on the bench, the council met one day a week, or they'd meet a half a day at night, once or twice a week, and that's all they were ever meeting with. Now we have things we can do every day on the tribal council if we choose to. I've thought about expanding Travoy, but the time on the council is becoming important, and I like to be part of that. I like to be part of the educational aspect. I think I am doing a lot to help the tribal council and our tribal people grow, but I need more time in Travoy to expand it. And I think for me to find 1 or 2 sales-oriented people who like to sell, that want to learn and do not mind traveling and furthering their education, and to train those people, it is also time-consuming. And I think about that. What do I really want to do? Do I want to stay in council? And if I do that, Travoy may stay small, or if I would stumble across Indian Health Service bids that I could manufacture or be able to take the order. Like, for example, they had an order out not too long for $5 million worth of rubber gloves to Indian Health Service. Well, my supplier said he could handle that, but he'd have to have some kind of financial guarantee that we'd be able to pay. So we were working on that when the bid was already let, so I wasn't able to handle that huge of an order. But if it comes again, then, which I think will, then I will be ready to handle it. The person that, if I was going to expand Travoy, that I think that when you're hiring 1 or 2 people initially, you can be very selective and pick a person. I guess it's just that inward sense that I have, that when I met an insurance lady that I knew she was a salesman. That's all she could talk about was sales, and she had the ability to communicate and have figures in her head and discuss things that I would like. And you have to have that type of sales-oriented person who really likes to sell, likes the end product, of writing out an order, writing up an order, making sure your order gets shipped, and that's a special type of person that you're not always thinking, well, I've got to be home at 5. My husband will be mad if I don't get home. The kids are on baseball tonight. And I guess the type of person I'd want would be a person who would probably think a lot like I do, that I'll work till 5 or 6, that I don't have anything else I need to do tonight. And want to be willing to spend their time studying. With Upjohn, when I first worked, I studied weekends, I studied evenings, because I wanted the ability to convey the sincerity that when I spoke to the chief of surgery at a major hospital or at a medical school, he could believe what I was saying. I wasn't there to try to make a quick sale and leave town and never come back, like we talk about car dealers. I'll sell you a car today, hope you don't come back. But we had to go back and see that person, and he hoped that he would try our product. And the same with travel. If they will try our product and go back and sell and resell and resell, you got to be resilient enough to handle that and spend enough time learning about the knowledge of your product so you can turn it back around. I think that in finding of the proper salesperson, depending on their ability, what type of background they had, if they were ever in sales before, and if they were not in medical sales, that you'd have to spend quite a bit of time teaching that person about your medical terminology, what text periodicals to read, how to compare the products. It could take a fair amount of time to build a very successful salesperson. I think, though, that the joy would come into my life that if I trained that person and they were successful in going on their own, making sales and having the ability to be resilient enough to go with the flow. If there's a bad objection to your product or a bad objection to their competitor's product, that you have enough ability, common sense, and background information to turn that around to make a successful sale. To me, that's very gratifying when I can do that professionally to a hospital or a surgeon or a nurse, that they're real happy with my product. That's very satisfying to me. But it'll take enough time to find those type of people to do that. I think with Upjohn, they told me they have to interview 100 people before they found one. And we had quite a high turnover in the first year or two because the young people we hired would not study, they would not work. You need a self-starter that I don't need to call them at 7:45 and say, now you get out on the road today. You'd call at 7 o'clock and they're already gone. That's the kind of person that I would like to be able to train. And sometimes you can't teach that. I think that if I had my choice of hiring people in this position with Travoy, I'd really prefer a tribal member who could say that I'm a tribal member and I'm a member of this tribe. My partner and his sidekick, they had gone around, I think, 2 or 3 times to every Indian health service in the United States, every dental clinic, and they were most often asked, are you guys tribal members? Are you guys tribal members? So I would follow up, and my general appearance would show that I'm a tribal member. And I think it made a little bit of a difference, but I would rather have a person to do that. Not necessarily, because if I found somebody who really fit the qualifications that I'd like, I would train them to do that. The businesses that I have now, I sold one to my daughter in Ronan, Tina Marie. I have the smoke signal in Polson and one on east shore of Flathead Lake, but I haven't opened that in the last year or so because of cherry freezes. And now I have a video store. We've had that about 10 years, and that's where we're at today inside the video store. Video station is called. My oldest daughter, who is also a graduate of University of Montana and SK College, manages for me, and she has 4 children, all in school, so she's running like any mother. Baseball games, basketball games, track and studies and all. She's done a nice job. And the video store, we just recently moved to this location to try to take advantage of more front-end type business. Our location was kind of poor where we were. We had a dollar store near us, and we stayed there another year, although I felt deep down we should move, but the dollar store didn't contribute to that much of our business. It was on the east end of the town. The dollar store would close at 5, and Town Pump is out there, which is a very busy store. But I happened to notice people would say, yes, I want to pick up a video from the video station, but I didn't want to go out that far. And I got to thinking about that. You know, I guess as a business person, you hear statements and you get a little funny feeling in your stomach. You think, I wonder what I should do. It was the same thing with the judge. You know, I would hear a story and I'd look at the person, and, you know, I guess I'd say I always call it my antennas would come up. Wait a minute, this doesn't sound right. I'm going to ask some more questions. And so I started asking people, what do you mean by going out there? Or, you know, out there by the Town Pump. I just didn't want to go out that far. So I thought about another location, and this one came open. This was across the street from the old post office. It's not that far from the new post office. And we're picking up a little more front-end traffic where we have pop in here now, little snacks, candy bars. We're looking to expand the front end of our business. The reason for that is because the candy bars, the pop, you have a higher front-end profit on that versus renting a movie. And that's the reason why we thought we could pick up more. And the reason I'm having such a hard time is I like working in the business world. I like working travel. I like working in my smoke shop. I like working in the video store. But I also like selling of the medical products. I think it's very, very satisfying for me to do that, but it's also very satisfying for me to be on the tribal council, listening, watching, making some changes. Hopefully make changes for the better. Our tribe here is very well thought of, and we try to keep progressing and move forward. I always talk about our Salish and Kootenai College. Of all the things that we do, I think it's one of the best things that happened to us, and expanding and making more. I pushed the president to put an education system in, which we're doing now, to train tribal teachers. I want our businesses to expand so we can train more people in the business world. That's really where it's going to be in a few years. So the logging and falling of timber may be a lot less in the future. So I look at all these things and I want to be part of that. I think that if I was to change, you know, let Travoy go and just work at the tribal council, that would be equally satisfying to me. I would still like to be on the tribal council, but I always like the world of business, and I still like to sell things and talk to people. I guess I'm a people-oriented person. I think that the thought about being a judge is supposed to be, you know, sober, not smile, and everything is one way. I was never that type of judge. I had to be versatile and had to smile and laugh. I never could be serious all the time. And I think it's the same on the tribal council, and it's really that way in the business world. I think one area that could be beneficial is the tribal colleges and their business sections could help people who are interested in selling, whether they're doing insurance work, whether they want to work for like Travoy Medical, whether they want to sell cars, they want a real estate license. Those areas that I think I'd like to see more tribal members in. I've often recommended tribal members, why don't you try the insurance business? You know, you only have to have an office. You don't have to have $100,000 worth of inventory. You don't have to have all those cattle, that expensive farm machinery. You need to have your knowledge upstairs. You need to learn about insurance contracts and their ability to pay. Real estate, you know, the more listings you have, that's money in the bank. You don't have to pay for those listings. You just need an office and telephone. Someone wants a farm or home, you're out there explaining the virtues of the home and answering their questions on taxes, how it was built, and the R factor and insulation. When you know that, just like in my business, then you become a successful person. And I think that the little techniques of not being so high pressured that there's only one way to go, and that's my way, and be resilient enough to go whatever the customer wants. And I think tribal colleges could really do a lot in helping young people, especially the tribal members, who would like to get into the sales game, and it's so wide open, because really nothing happens in the whole world two people get together and somebody buys something. Then the whole economy starts rolling then, whether it's a pack of cigarettes, it's a new Chevrolet or a new Ford, the whole world starts moving because you bought something today. So I think you got to give back. Like, for example, I've officiated football for 28 years. How many people do you know that are almost 65 years old that are out officiating football, chasing those young men up and down the field, or officiating basketball? You got to give back. You can't always take. And I still do that. I keep myself in physical shape, and I'm studying football all the time. I'm doing the clinics and doing the games 3 or 4 a week while we can. I want to be sure I give something back to my community. It's important to me. I sat in the stands for 3 years. I was not officiating. I thought I'd retire. I couldn't stand it. I heard people picking on the officials all the time. I didn't know they did that. But when I'm out there, I know that I'm a well-qualified official. I know the rules. I know my products. I know my cigarettes, my videos. I have confidence in my abilities. I've learned that. And even though I may have to drop my flag on a long touchdown run, everybody's booing at me. If I saw the foul, I know it's a violation, drop my flag. I don't have any problem with it. I have the confidence in myself. And I think that whatever you decide to do, whether you're sales or you want to teach or you want to be a physician or an attorney, you must have confidence in yourself that you can do whatever you choose to do in any way you want to do it, legally and professionally, and be real happy to be part of the community. I just think that I've been so lucky here in Polson, Montana, on the Flathead Indian Reservation, that I think that by going to University of Montana, you know, learning a little bit and trying then to come back and give something to the community, I think is more important. I think a role model is important. Looking at the Ford Foundation's Rural Community College Initiative, you see what you can do for your community. You want to see what the Ford Foundation can help you with that community. You want to be able to give back. It's very satisfying to me to give back. I don't have to be out on that football field on Friday night and going to clinics at night and helping other young people become officials, and I spend a lot of time training there. I want to give back. I want to be remembered that I gave back a lot. I just didn't take. I think that by being a person who is busy, that is kind of well thought of in a lot of ways, maybe not every way, but you're trying to help, like in football officiating or your stores. I make a lot of donations to athletic groups, so they're playing basketball tonight or baseball the weekends. I try to do that, and I think it makes an impact when you can share that with other people. And it's important to me that I'm able to do that, and it makes me feel a lot better than just ringing up a sale that I've helped somebody. For example, I donated $48 to the bicycle helmet people, and I received about 3 or 4 letters from young children that said, "Thank you for the helmet you purchased for me." That means a lot. Okay, and I want you to know that as I was talking earlier on about the video store and my smoke signal, this is my oldest daughter, Pamela, who manages the video store for me, assists me a lot in Travoy Medical, doing the book work and helping them write the checks and helping me do the things that I need to do right now. She's learning a little bit about that business too, but she knows a lot more about the video store business than I'll ever know.
So Pam, does that keep you busy?
Definitely. 4 kids, baseball, and this is more than I can handle sometimes.
So does it get hard sometimes?
Well, we just moved, so that was a long 2 weeks, but we're settled and we picked a good month to move. It's traditionally a slower month of the year. We're looking forward to summer though here. We really like our new building and we're happy with how it turned out for us.
Do you like your customers?
I do, definitely, definitely. That's the best part of this business, is getting to see everybody again every summer, and all the high school kids that we've known that are coming back from college, and just all the summer folks. A lot of more people are here in the summertime.
Do you know what kind of movies your customers like?
Here in town it tends to be family oriented. Of course the A titles, action films, do well. Pretty much I'd say the classic A stuff. Some people look for a few foreign films and films off the beaten track. We try to get those too, but I'd say this store is pretty family oriented. We have high school kids working here, so we keep that in mind too when we're buying.
So if somebody walks in, can you give them a suggestion?
Definitely,
You know,
like to do that. We guarantee it. If you don't like it, we'll give you your money back if we guarantee it. We pick it for you. We're definitely sure it's something that the majority of people will enjoy.
Great. So do you like this job?
I do. It's a lot of work when you have the majority of the responsibility on your shoulders. But there's a lot of rewards, and some of the benefits are now when I need to be gone for baseball, which we enjoy. All my kids participate. I can get out of here when I need to. I can write my own schedule, so that's a big plus.
Have you ever thought about going back to school?
Yes, if Dad had anything to say about it, I would have already gone.
Going there.
U of M Law School is where I'd like to go, but I realized after getting my 4-year degree that was such a big commitment for my family and myself and my husband that I needed to spend some time with my youngest sons. They're only 12 and 9. And they missed out on a lot when I was gone.
Where'd you get your 4-year degree?
At the University of Montana.
What's your degree in?
In liberal arts, which is what the law school thought would best prepare me for them. And I didn't know at the time why they said that. After about 3 years, I figured it out. It was probably the best preparation. I'm interested now in the SKC teaching certificate. I think that would be something that I could do without a lot of work and get accredited and maybe do something like that down the road, which does interest me as well. I like working with kids.
What would happen with your business if you did it?
Hire some competent person to run it. I think that there's a lot of people, customers, that have always offered if we ever needed help that I would completely trust, know a lot about movies, and would be fine in here. If they're people oriented, they'll do fine.